The images we're going to be looking at this week will all be about erasing the subject of the image. So there are two methods of erasure that we're going to talk about, and I'd like you to use one per each image that you're working with. And the first one that I'm going to talk about in this exercise is going to be the effect like in the Charles Cohen pictures where it looks like something has been erased but made, we still see kind of like a silhouette of the image. So here's a past student example of it. And this is done with what's called a layer mask, and it's completely non-destructive. I'll just disable this layer mask temporarily so you can see this is what the original image is like. We haven't actually erased anything. This wasn't done with, well, it was done in part by making selections, but that wasn't the final step to it. So I'd like to explain briefly what is a layer mask. I'm going to go back over to my image here, and I'm going to add a layer mask by going down to the bottom of my layers panel and click on Add Layer Mask. And this adds just something that looks like a white thumbnail. Well, the white really represents transparency. So when you add a layer mask, it's just like you added a piece of transparent acetate or plastic on top of your image. It's going to look exactly the same. But what I can do with a layer mask is I can paint onto it, and what I paint black onto it is going to show whatever was underneath. So this is kind of like when we're in quick mask mode and we're painting with black and white, it's affecting our selection. So I have the foreground color selected to be black. I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to paint into my image, and it looks like I'm erasing my image. I'm seeing a checkerboard underneath, which is what Photoshop describes, or how they represent transparency. So if you look over my layer mask though, you can see that it's no longer just completely white, there's a little bit of black here. So that is the result of the black. It's showing me the layer underneath. And just to demonstrate, if I switch and I go back to, and I go to my color white and I start painting, I bring it back. It's all totally non-destructive. Let's just bring over a different image so that we can see that result of having something underneath. I'll just take another image and put it underneath. So now what it's showing, and I want to increase the size of this, so I'm going to click on my layer mask and I'm going to make sure I'm painting with black. Now instead of showing transparency, it's showing the image that I just pasted and put underneath. So we're going to talk about this an awful lot when we get into your project coming up, composite portrait. So for this project, we're going to work with this, first making a selection and then making it into a layer mask. So I have an image over here called my bear image, and I'll just take you through the steps. So this is kind of the end result. What I have is a layer on the bottom that's red, and I've masked out this image of something that's hanging from the clothing line, so you're seeing the red below. It looks essentially like this has been erased. So taking you through it, first I made a general selection of my object, and I touched that up a little bit using the quick selection tool. And then I went into the quick mask mode and did lots more touch-ups in the quick mask mode. And then I exited quick mask mode, and then I continued to work on the selection with the polygonal lasso tool. So here we are, I've added the layer mask, and so I'll step back. So let's assume that you guys have made your selection around the object that you want to look like it has been erased. You've done those steps, maybe it's a 3-step process or 2-step process. So now the next step would be to go to your layers panel and click on the icon for Add Layer Mask. So what that did when you already had a selection is it basically masked out everything that was outside of your selection. So that's showing me what's on the layer below. So I will also get rid of this layer, so I'll put that together with you guys. Alright, so it's showing me all this transparency. That's sort of what I wanted, but I actually want to flip it, so I want the bear to be the thing that's gone. To edit my mask, I'm going to, over my layers panel, select the mask and then double click it. And I get the pop-up window here. And the first thing I want to do is click the option where it says invert. And so now everything is in the background was not selected anymore, and it is now the bear that is being masked out. And so from this stage of the game, it's just like when we were in the last week talking about the things that you can do to refine your mask. So this week I'm not interested in, well, at least for this image, I don't want to smooth it out. I actually want to use the contrast because there's lots of like little hairs on the bear's edges, so I want it to be a harder edge. I might need to make it a little bit bigger and just kind of tweak that as needed. And then once you're done, hit OK. And now the last thing would be to put something on the layer below. So I'm just going to create a new blank layer. I'm going to put that on the layer below because that's what's going to show through. Whatever I have masked here, it's going to show through. And I'll just pick a color. So I double click on my foreground color, it opens the color picker, and I'm going to put in like a pale gray, click OK. And then I can use the keyboard shortcut Alt Backspace, and it fills that whole layer, but we only see what has been masked out on layer 0. It shows me through to my layer 3 here. And then if I needed to keep working on this mask, I can click on the mask, and then I could always zoom in, and if I'm painting with black, that is adding to the mask. If I'm painting with white, I'm taking away. So I'll just do a quick demo of that. So I'm painting with black. That would be increasing the size of my mask here. I'll just make a mistake. So if I did something like that, then I just switch, and I'm going to basically be erasing that, painting with white. All right, so this is like the Charles Cohen type pieces, and I'd like you to try this for one of your projects.